Leadership Network. We're a designated safe meetup group. And if any of you guys, if this is your first meeting, we'd like to welcome you and hope you will find this of value. So, whoa, okay, here's our board members. So there's myself down in the lower left, Steve Nunziata. Above me is Larry Bach. In the middle is Janet Custer. And to the right top is Vin Sukraj. And in the lower right is Dave Kiersnowski.
And we just took our new team picture today.
We did take that. That's not quite ready to share, I guess, though, Dave, is it?
No, not yet. Not that fast.
Fair enough. Okay, so after tonight's event, as we do with our meetings, normally we have a short survey monkey we'd like to send out. Let us know how the event went, what we can do for you, how we help you on your Agile journey, what types of things you'd like to see from the group. So we're always looking for ways to improve, meet the needs of our community. This is your opportunity to weigh in and give us some feedback, and we appreciate you doing so. Where to find us. So there's our email account, agilehartford@gmail.com. That's also the Gmail account that sent you the Zoom link for tonight. We're also on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn, and Vin is our social media guru, and he usually posts our upcoming events out there. So also a good place to look for what's going on. You can also find us at agilehartford.org on the web, which is our homepage. You'll find all of our previous events. Many have links to the presentations. There are some that have the videos of the event itself. And we try to get whatever we can out there for your reference. And if you need to document SCUs or PDUs, if you have any certifications, that's a great reference. You'll have the date, speaker, presentation materials. It's there for you as a repository for things we've gone through as Agile Hartford. So I'd like to thank our gold partner in Agile Hartford, Allison Group, who have been a great partner with us through day one. So I want to give over to Rich Thompson from Allison.
Hey guys, thanks Steve, and thanks to the Agile Hartford crew, Vin, Dave, Larry, and Janet. Really appreciate the partnership that we have with you guys, and especially you continuing to keep us engaged virtually here. Over the past year, it's just been great to see everybody, and looking forward to getting on site and getting in person hopefully soon. So, thanks to everybody for joining us tonight. I don't know a lot of people on the call, but for those who don't know, Allison Group, we're a IT consulting and talent solutions provider with expertise across every phase of Agile transformation. And we offer advisory, training, coaching, and team level resources to help carry out, your Agile transformation, pretty much wherever you are at currently in it. So, love to talk to you if you're going through a transformation, if you're a Scrum Master coach, somebody who can help one of our clients, we'd love to talk to you as well. We've got Diane Hiller on the chat here as well. So Diane's one of our senior recruiters, does a lot within the Agile community here in the Connecticut market. So thanks guys, and we look forward to hearing you tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Rich. So Lee, you will receive an email from Alison, and I promise you it is not spam. So
well, we'll see about that. No, I'm sure it won't be, but excellent. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So some news about our podcast. You've heard us talk about this before. Last year, we did several podcasts on a variety of topics. I'd encourage you to check those out on any of your favorite podcast sites. I can tell you that usually we have some downtime in the summer, and we are making plans to come back to our podcasts and see what we can do to keep that momentum going. We've got some really exciting topics lined up for that, and we're hoping we can get those together. So over the course of the summer, if you're feeling some Agile withdrawal, which I doubt you are, but you have opportunity to maybe listen to a podcast on agility and transformation, and we hope you'll take advantage of that. So what's coming up next? So in May, Alex Connon will be here. He is a Agile transformation coach down in Texas. He's going to be talking about revisiting your working agreements. Registration for that event is now open. The date on that is May 19th, Wednesday, May 19th. If you look out on Eventbrite, it's live right now. I'll also send a link to registration with the SurveyMonkey feedback request tonight. So you'll have that as well. Backing up a second too. So we are also, for the rest of the year, we're looking at having virtual meetings in September, October, and November, but we are starting conversations right now about the opportunity to get back together in person in Hartford for our annual December meeting. So if you guys remember those, where we go to, what's the brew pub? City Steam, and have a presenter and some food and just have great social hour together. So we're hoping to get back before the end of the year. More on that as we learn it. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll be back in person at least once this year. Then what's going on in June, Dave? So big news. So I want to thank Janet and Larry for their awesome work on getting us speakers for April, May, and June. But in June, we've secured M. Campbell Pretty, who is, many of you know, is a well-respected person in the Agile community. She's joining us in June. M will be in Australia, so she will not be flying over to Hartford, and we don't blame her. But she's giving a presentation around feature disco your way to PI planning. Does your art have trouble building a backlog? Do your art teams complain about features lack information? Is your IP sprints all planning and no innovation? What we're also doing is we're partnering with several affinity groups to bring this presentation to you. We have joining us, as of today, we have commitments to join from Agile San Antonio, Women in Agile New York, Agile Rhode Island, Agile Maine, and Agile Austin.
Woo!
We're also approaching a couple more groups, Agile Denver and Agile New England. So this is going to be a big blowout international gala, and I'd encourage you to register early. This will be a great event, and M, as you know, is a well-known, well-respected speaker.
So Steve, even though she's not coming here, if the Agile Hartford community were to raise funds and gift the board with tickets to go to see her, would we all go? I would go.
We could do that. We could have a bake sale, car wash, whatever we can do. So look for more information coming about M, but we are limited to 300 people for that. And realize too, we're also partnering with several affinity groups. So there will be information around how to register for that, along with our special registration code that's just for Agile Hartford people. So more to come in May as we get there. It's going to be a great international event. We also have a meetup group from Australia joining us too. So maybe there'll be breakouts and you'll be peered with someone in Texas and Canberra, Australia. Who knows? But that'll be exciting. So moving on, I want to go to this evening's presenter. So Lee Allison is joining us. Lee is the CEO of Allison Agile, which is Central and South Texas's original scaled Agile partner. Lee's a SAFe 5.0 program consultant who implements SAFe across the country. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you, and please help me welcome virtually, Lee Allison.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate the intro, Steve. Thank you very much. Yeah, we were really surprised that from San Antonio, or actually from Austin South, there was no partners anywhere in Texas whatsoever. So we are a partner with Scaled Agile. I am a 5.0 SPC. I have done this particular dance at a couple of different companies you might have heard of, maybe Whole Foods, maybe iHeartMedia. And then in 2019, I also had the opportunity to work with Mauser Electronics up in Dallas, Texas. Mauser basically runs a $2 billion website that is Radio Shack on the web. And we converted their primary dev group over to an Agile release train and got them lined up and set up. My current gig, COVID was hard on a lot of people. It was particularly challenging for mom and pop organizations. So I'm currently in a full-time position with NetSpend out of Austin here, and we're converting one of their primary value streams into an Agile release train right now. We just got our value stream map done 2 weeks ago. We're starting to socialize it, and we're starting to align our teams with what are the systems that support that release train, that value stream. So it's fun, it's exciting. If you look at my career, I've spent time in mom and pops, but I've spent most of my career working for Microsoft, for Walmart, for Credit Suisse, for the larger corporate entities. And it's just an area where I'm comfortable with. I understand the politics. I know, for the most part, how to not get tripped up by them. And I can bring the skill set, the safe framework, and things like that to bear on common problems that everybody has within their organizations. The usual things of, oh my God, we're missing delivery dates. Oh my gosh, the quality is crappy. Oh my God, hey, we can do a better job at managing this work than what we're currently doing. I see that we've got a screen share going on right now. Do you guys mind if I share my screen for the presentation? Is that going to be okay? I'm going to go with yes here. Nope. We're going to have to get that squared away then. Sorry about that, Steve.
Yeah, who's sharing?
All right, do we have
Karen?
Let me just see.
I mean, I can talk to whatever Karen's sharing, but it won't be quite the same quality as what I was prepared for. I'll do my best though, okay?
Just a second here. Let me see what. Here we go.
All right,
you should be able to take over it now. Sorry about that.
Yep, no worries. Let me jump in on it real quick.
There we go.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so the topic that we're talking about tonight is not revolutionary. It doesn't require tons and tons of libraries worth of books to get the concept. But what I really like to do is one of my favorite presentation styles. And I refer to it as, we're all kids on the playground. We show up on the playground first thing Monday morning, and over the weekend, I had a birthday party or a holiday, and I've got a brand new toy. And I'm going to spend about 15, 20, 30 minutes describing the toy, and then I'm going to throw it out into the group of kids here on the playground, and let's figure out new ways to play with it or new ways to use it. Okay, so that's our proposition tonight. I've got a grand total of 15 slides, and at least 3 of those are bumper or wind up stuff, so it should be fun, right? We're talking about Gemba metrics. It's kind of a unique phrase. Most of us are probably comfortable with what Gemba is and where it came from, but we're going to talk about that here in just a minute. And then we're going to talk very specifically about what Gemba metrics are. But before we do that, the next slide, slide number 2, is probably the most important slide in the entire presentation because it talks about limits of use for this particular slide deck that we've got here. And I do encourage you folks to steal this deck. Okay, the QR code, it will take you to a folder that has this deck and a couple of other items in it, along with an executable, a small little video game that I pulled together for this particular discussion. The entire deck is licensed under CCA non-commercial share alike. That means you can use it for whatever you want to, as long as you give me attribution for it and you share it forward, whatever else you do with it. So, highly protected, absolutely super protected, right? So let's go back to first cases here and let's talk about Gemba itself. Taiichi Ohno was the gentleman who first popularized or helped to define the concept of Gemba. The actual Japanese word translates to the actual place. Now, what place are we talking about? Well, that's subject to interpretation depending upon who you're talking to. Gemba walks have been part of our repertoire as agile managers for a long time. Well, for those of us who've been around corporate for a while, a Gemba walk is just a new phrase for what we used to refer to as management by walking around. The concepts are exactly the same. Get out from behind your desk, get out of your office, out of your cubicle, and go spend time with your peers, with your subordinates that are doing the work, not micromanaging them, but getting to understand their pain points and where things are causing them problems, so that you can be a blocker eliminator for them and you can clear up their pipelines so that they can work better. Now, Gemba's really easy. We're going to take a side tour for just a couple of minutes, and I want to show you guys the slide, and I want you to just do a real quick, do you remember this particular graphic? Everybody remember that? I actually worked on Windows 3.11. This was one of my first operating systems when I got out of the Amiga world. Everybody remember Amigas? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Old school, right? Windows 3.11, at its time, this graphic was taken of the release candidate of their product in November of '93. It was, at the time, the biggest operating system in the world. And by biggest, I mean there were a couple of hundred people using it. Computers hadn't taken over the world quite the way they have now. So biggest, it absolutely was, but nowhere big as Windows 10 is these days, or any of the Apple iOSs, or even any of the Unix X operating systems. But this is what Microsoft had built their industry dominance on. There was no startup. There was no file manager specifically. There was this thing that kind of acted like a file manager, and it was less of an operating system and more of a launcher than anything else. However, Redmondton had a problem. They wanted to go from this thing of beauty, grace, and elegance, and they wanted to transition to this. This is Windows 95 release candidate from August of 1995. This was what they went to market with. Now, it's easy to see plenty of cosmetic changes, but there are also a ton of fundamental mechanical changes about what was going on. This entire section up here at the top, the start and then the individual buttons for the the applications that were running, they had a calculator built into the task manager and a little pop-up and a always available clock. What sort of futuristic sci-fi rigmarole are we looking at here, right? Well, Microsoft's challenge was, is this the right way to take the product? Will our customers like this new look for the product, this new thing for the product? Microsoft's product managers had the same challenge that all of us have every single day. We don't know for a fact that the customers are going to like the new changes that we're going to make to our product. If we've done our homework, we've got a good guess, but we don't actually know. And I go back to my favorite quote from Henry Ford. If I'd asked my customers what they wanted, I would have bred faster horses. Ford did not breed faster horses. He built a better car, and he built them by the thousands. That was Ford's major contribution to the world of manufacturing, right? So if you're a Microsoft product manager, by the time you can generate a screenshot like this, there is an awful lot of code development that has already happened, sunk costs. This is money that you will never recover in any way, shape, or form. You might make back an equal amount, but you're always going to have paid those developers, those engineers, those architects. That money is gone, okay? So what did Microsoft do with this? Well, they reached out to a company in Dallas, Texas, and this is, I'm getting ahead of myself, my apologies. This slide talks about some of the massive changes to this interface. Start button, the apps appearing in the taskbar, notifications, open with. The wastebasket, the recycle bin was a brand new thing. It had a built-in help system, and I remember at the time being so ecstatically happy that the help system was partially context aware. And if you were looking at this particular part of the operating system and hit the help, you would get help on that part of the operating system. It had fuzzy search capabilities, et cetera, et cetera. Microsoft had to know if they were getting ready to kill themselves, were they getting ready to knock it out of the park, Or were they getting ready to just do more of business as usual? And the way that they found out was they reached out to Usability Sciences in Dallas, Texas in November of '94. Usability Sciences is still an ongoing organization. The screen cap onto the right was made middle of last year. Okay, so they're still a live company. What did Usability Sciences do? Well, what was the internet like in 1994? Well, there almost was no internet for practical applications. It was a bunch of disparate websites. No, there was no YouTube back then. Google was barely getting started, right? Finding information or making connections on the internet, this whole remote thing that we're doing right now, pure Buck Rogers science fiction. Usability Sciences took a different tack. Because they were located in Dallas, they knew that all of their testers were going to have to physically come from the Dallas area. And the testers were going to have to come into a centralized location to perform usability testing. Okay, we do usability testing these days, but it's mostly remote or it's in some sort of a remote environment. That wasn't an option in '94. So these guys had to find candidates that were computer savvy enough to be considered candidates, and then find ones that were willing to fight Dallas traffic to make it into the office. They came up with a total of 75 volunteers from DFW. Each volunteer over a couple of week period made the trek into the Usability Sciences offices, and they were put in a small closed-in office that had 2 separate machines, video cameras, and microphones. And everything that they did was recorded and analyzed. Now, both sets of machines, obviously, one was Windows 3X, one was Windows 95. They were given a list of jobs to perform. Create a new Word document, open up this directory, find this information. And the computers had analytics built in that was tracking the user's progress through the task list. Okay, all the results were collated, all the reports were generated, and at the end of the day, what Usability Sciences came up with was that on average, the Windows 95 users were 25% more efficient than the Windows 3X users were being. 25%. That's a non-trivial amount of better efficiency with what you're doing. Well, Microsoft sales teams took that and ran with it hardcore. In late 94, early 95, if you were running a Windows-based call center, you could have expected a sales call from your sales account rep saying, hey, David, we're going to pick on you just because I see your profile up here. David, you've got a call center with 500 people all on Windows 3X. Would it be worth your career to be able to say that all 500 people were going to be 25% more productive? I mean, the checks just write themselves, right? I mean, this is like trivial. Of course, people were signing up by the droves. Through the help desk was a major push for getting Windows 95 accepted in the marketplace. And all of that was done off of the back of this work that Usability Sciences had done. Now, let's get back to Gemba that we started out the discussion with, because we're getting ready to get these 2 disparate pieces of information pulled in together. Gemba means more than where it actually happens. Here are some examples of where Gemba has come to mean. What I would like for us to do is I would like for us to get Gemba out of the workshop and out of the workplace. And let's get Gemba back to meaning a conversation with our customers about what it is that they're doing with the product. Wait a minute. You mean there's metrics other than server uptime and server response time? Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen. And that's literally what we're talking about here. If you needed to get user testing from your customer base, how expensive would it be right now in your organizations to take the usability sciences route and set up dual machines? That was an early version of an A/B test that they were doing. Okay, set up your machines, find your volunteers, build the test rig, build the location, get the volunteers in front, blah, 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 blah. That's a non-starter, right? Nobody has budget for that kind of stuff. Instead, what we do is we build metrics into our product that capture, with an eye towards anonymization, do not capture personally identifiable information, but in the gestalt, it captures how your people are interacting with your product. Okay. If you have a remotely connectable database and a couple of lines of code, it is very, very simple to build Gemba metrics into your suite of products from the get-go. Gemba metrics are part of what I refer to as day one code. Before you have coded any of your feature set, you should always start your dev teams with, let's build a server stack with a good DevOps pipeline with operational metrics and Gemba metrics from the start. This is what we spend our first 1 or 2 sprints building. And then we layer features into that environment. So this is kind of like if you've ever done any code work and you've ever coded Hello World. Hello World is the first thing that most people learning a new code build, not because Hello World is so fascinating. It proves basic functionality. You understand the language, you understand how to compile it, you understand how to deploy it. That's it, okay? Now, once you have that day 0, day 1 stuff, now you layer your feature set in on top of it. Okay, here are a couple of bullet points that talk about some aspects of Gemba metrics. You should start getting your feedback from those internal testers and your automation teams to begin with, but then you expand it to your beta testers, then your pre-release showcases, and then eventually your MVP participants as well. And of course, when you go to full production, the Gemba metrics just sit in the background, continuing to collate data for you about what does work and what doesn't work. One of the best product owners that I've ever worked with, we were building an oil and gas pipeline data piece of software. It was designed to tell you whether or not this particular oil rig was getting ready to go dry, or should we take a lease on that oil rig right there. The guy walks into sprint planning one day and he's like, guys, I've got it. I know the most amazing, fantastic feature that will crush our competition. We will be the only one in the marketplace once we go live with this feature. We already had the product out. Our customers were loving it. Our competitors were wholesale copying us, which usually tells you you're on the right path, right? We were very excited to build this thing that Damien wanted us to build. Well, we had built Gemba metrics in from the very beginning. So this is like 12 months into development on this product. Our dev team takes apart his new feature. We determined it was going to be about 8 sprints worth of build. It was going to be a big chunk of our calendar year. And we get the MVP knocked out in 2 sprints. We roll the MVP out, and our metrics, nobody cared. Not a single one of our customers had come through the door to use this new feature. It wasn't because we weren't publicizing it. It's because it wasn't what our customers wanted. Without Gemba metrics, Damien and myself, I was the Scrum Master, we would have blindly built out the remaining 6 sprints worth of work. And that would have been effort that we did end up using on more productive parts of the product, but we would have wasted all of that without a quality set of Gemba metrics. So now, my background also outside of Agile, I play video games. I've played video games pretty much most of my adult life. So I'm going to show you two things just as an example of what these look like. Currently, I do a little bit of hobbyist game development, and I use Game Maker Studio. I'll never sell any of this. I don't want to sell any of it. It's just fun, and it keeps my brain engaged with how Agile is supposed to work and what's supposed to go on. Game Maker Studio is built by Yo-Yo Games. It is a free engine that you can use to develop video games with. Game Analytics is a third-party organization that you can bundle into your Game Maker Studio product and gather some of these kinds of metrics. We're not going to take a very deep look at the metrics, but I do want to show you real quickly what we've got here. The game itself is called Gemba Rocks, and you guys might recognize this as being just a standard asteroids clone. Looks like my collision detection was a little bit off. There we go. And if I were to play this long enough, come on, just go ahead. You know, when you want to hit something, there we go. Okay, now that I've actually got that taken care of, this is the interface for game analytics. It's going to take probably 15 or 20 minutes for those analytics to get reported back to Game Analytics website. So we're looking at some analytics from June and July of last year. But you can see the use, you can see session length. These are all pretty straightforward. It is entirely possible to set up metrics that talk about progression through the game or through your product, whatever your product is. This would be very similar to a metric for e-commerce websites called cart abandonment. Cart abandonment is where you've selected some products, you've added them to your cart, and you've never gotten around to actually selling, hitting the purchase button so that you can buy those items. That's cart abandonment. People who run e-commerce websites are heavily focused. What part of your customer flow through your website is responsible for most of your cart abandonment? Because that tells you that there's a problem with that specific location. You're not easing people through the transactions of your product. So the whole point of Gemba metrics is, first and foremost, please understand what they are. Please understand how they're used. Please understand how you get them built into your product. They come from, they're defined by your product people, product owners or product managers, system architects, business owners or stakeholders. They're implemented by your dev team, and the work for implementing your Gemba products is sized, estimated, and prioritized just like any other work. You still have to maintain your team's capacity and load balances to make sure you're not overworking your team. But your product people should never be surprised when there is no Gemba analytics because they haven't prioritized them or agreed to pay for them. And by pay, I mean getting your teams to develop them. Okay. So you can build them into your product as part of your acceptance criteria or your definition of done, either one. You can also insert spikes into your backlog where your dev team becomes comfortable with whatever platform you're using to capture these Gemba metrics. It is possible to roll your own, but with Google Analytics or sites like Game Analytics, there's not a lot of value in rolling your own Gemba metrics. If you can, great. If not, this is off-the-shelf stuff from any of a dozen vendors around the marketplace. Now, once you have your metrics, what are you going to do with them? You're going to radiate them. You're going to make sure that they go in front of the people who are actually building the backlog for the product, product owners, product managers, business owners, architects, et cetera, et cetera. Build and socialize your dashboards, because your dashboards talk about the health of your product from your customer's value point of view. And we want to make sure that we're engaging leadership so that the leadership can use these metrics to help drive their decision making as well. And then the last bullet point, this should be part of your design process. Everything that you do, you should be asking yourself, do we have Gemba metrics to support this? How do you deploy them? Well, this is part and parcel of a good, healthy DevOps conversation. Believe it or not, even though DevOps live on the extreme right-hand side of your continuous delivery pipeline, your people on the extreme right-hand side of the pipeline, the continuous exploration folks, they need to be paying attention all the way through that pipeline. And then, of course, we're going to want to architect for releasability, canary releases, A/B test, beta test, feature toggles, et cetera, okay? Like I said, it's not a tough concept to get. It's just something that we don't pay attention to enough. And my hope with this discussion is that now we can talk about either real world examples of Gemba metrics or answer questions about them or whatever. But my hope is starting tomorrow morning, when you guys log into your team meetings and such, start asking yourselves, do we have the right amount of Gemba metrics here in this product? If not, maybe y'all need to have a conversation, or maybe you are the product owner. Maybe you need to build some spikes and some stories to get those metrics into your product. I will say one last thing in closing before we open this up for discussions. There's an old comment about planting trees. When was the best time to ever have planted a tree? Well, the answer is 20 years ago. Okay, if you didn't plant your tree 20 years ago, when is the second best time to plant a tree?
Yeah.
Today, right now. Yeah, okay. If you've got a big, heavy product with thousands and millions of lines of code and there isn't an ounce of Gemba metric anywhere, today is the best time to plant that tree. Start getting those Gemba metrics in there. Start including them in part of the product design discussions, and you will find that your organization will come to rely on them heavily, and that's a good thing. Okay, that's enough of me jabbering on. I think we've probably all agreed that's enough. Questions from the audience or discussions about Gemba metrics? What can I do for you folks?
So Lee, this is Larry. I do have a question, actually several questions, but I'll start with just one.
Bring it.
I think you build a compelling argument that says we need those Gemba metrics, or I think using safe terminology, lagging indicators, whatever you want to call them.
They are lagging, that's for sure.
But how do, especially like you said, 20 years ago, I should have done it. Well, I didn't. What is the right approach with leadership who says that costs too much? How do we?
Oh yeah.
How do we?
Absolutely.
Like you said, it's additional work potentially that has to be done.
It is, and all of that work has to exist within your team's capacity and load.
Sure.
Okay, it has to. You can't just blow up your team's work schedule because one of your product owners saw this long-haired hippie boy from Austin talk about this new buzzword and now they want it included in the product, right? That's not the way to go about doing it. The best way that I've ever found to convince product people that Gemba metrics are the way to go is just sit in on a sprint planning session or a PI planning session. Bide your time. It'll happen. It won't take very long. Somebody somewhere will evidence a little bit of uncertainty about whether or not this is the right feature to build, right? And that's your moment to pounce. Wouldn't it be nice if we could tell for a fact whether or not we're investing in the parts of our product that our people are using? That'd be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, okay. That's a great one. When you're, especially at PI planning, when you're talking about 125 people, 10 weeks worth of committed work, that's an insanely huge investment for any organization, however big you are or are not.
Right.
Wouldn't a suite of Gemba metrics that could help reassure leadership these are the right things to build? I look at Gemba metrics like another guardrail that helps to make sure that the budget is going to the most efficacious parts of the product.
Thank you.
Hey Lee, this is Kim Bennett, and
Hey,
I
Kim.
work for a local insurance company. And I recently transitioned from an engineering manager role into a product owner role. And I think I have two different questions, so I can ask one now and one later if others
Go for
have questions. We have a ton of analytical data from Adobe Analytics, etc.
Okay.
One of the challenges that I'm facing now is no one wants to deal with it because when you deep dive into it, which I've done in my new role, I find things like only 8 people have clicked on this feature we spent $1 million to build.
Ooh.
Do we want to continue to enhance it, or can I turn it off? And it starts to get very political.
Sure.
How do you deal with that? Because I tried to explain to my team, right? We wouldn't put merchandise that no one is buying at the front aisle in Stop and Shop.
Nope.
So why are we putting our product out here that no one is using anymore? Maybe it's time to turn it off and put something else at the front of the line. How do you have those conversations without making enemies?
Well, 2 strategies I can suggest. Beers and/or scotch is one strategy. The alternative strategy is whoever is the blocker, embarrassing photos of that person helps quite a bit. But shy of that, this becomes a gut check kind of a thing. Okay. You need to be in an environment, and let me finish the statement and then we'll talk about the anti-pattern first. You need to be in an environment of trust mutually, where your leadership trusts your teams, but everybody trusts you to do the right thing. Okay. If you're walking into a PI planning or even a sprint planning session, and you're talking about potentially committing the work lives of a group of people to a feature where you know for a fact 8 people have clicked on this feature in the past 6 months, you've got to ask that question. Okay. Your job is to put the right work in front of the teams at the right time. And 8 clicks, is it one team for a sprint, or is it one train for a PI that we're talking about, or somewhere in between, Kim?
So this was it was a product that people said we had to have. People work nights and weekends. We put it in. We're still acting like it is, a showcase product, but yet no one seems to use it, right?
Okay.
Ever.
So then I would use that as a sanity check moment and simply bring the data. The data is agnostic, right?
Yeah.
We can talk about, is it the right data? And by right data, maybe it's got some unfortunate built-in biases or some context or whatever. Okay. But you can certainly start the conversation with a nice, healthy CYA caveat of, folks, I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't show you this before we made this decision.
I like the way you put that. Thank you. That's helpful. That's a conversation starter for me.
Politics, man, right?
Yeah.
It's all in how you phrase it and how you approach it. Now, if you come in with your hands on your hips, you people are about ready to waste all this time. That's a non-starter, of course, right? But you can simply say, guys, if you tell me to build this in spite of these negative metrics, we'll go ahead and build it anyway. But I have to at least make you aware of this reality. We've spent the time, we've spent the investment to build these metrics in and capture and store these metrics. Databases are not quite exactly free, but they're close to it, but they're not exactly free, right? Are we doing ourselves right? Are we doing our customers right by making decisions in absence of this data? And then I would add also, maybe go ahead and caveat, hey team, if we want to talk about the validity of the data, let's have that discussion, but we need to have the data on the table when we're making this decision. That would be my suggestion.
Writing it all down. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. You said you had a second question, unless somebody else would like to jump in front.
I just wanted to share, Larry, ironically enough, I'm sorry, Lee.
That's okay.
Ironically enough, I had this same conversation earlier this week.
Nice.
And people had metrics, and their metrics looked good, and they were proud of it. But their metrics were all about delivering work, and they built a whole organization around acquiring funding every year to stand this thing up, and how fast they can update it and add things. So all their metrics look great that they were looking at, but their metrics were about delivery, and they forgot to look at, does anybody still care?
Yep.
Yes.
There are at least 3 large bodies of metrics we as Agilists have to be comfortable with. There is, of course, operational metrics, server uptime, database response time, server load, all that stuff that the operations and the DevOps people geek out over, that talks about the health of the systems that support your product. You cannot run big boy and girl software without operational metrics. Then there's all the productivity metrics that is really part and parcel of us as Agilists. Velocity, bug density, mean time to fix, all that other stuff that talks about, are our teams moving code through the continuous delivery pipeline efficiently? We're doing a disservice to our organizations if we don't collect and promote those kind of metrics. But this is that third part that solely talks about the delivery of value to the customer. What is the customer doing with our product? And this is the part of metrics that kind of really gets short shrift compared to the first two, at least in my experience. David, thanks for the input. I appreciate it.
This is Jim Pfister.
Hey, Jim.
How you doing? I work for an insurance company as well, and I'm a product owner of a small piece of the business where we import files into a member book of records application.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, basically we import these files, and the result of that, we explain, well, we tell how many records we brought in from the file and how many records got successfully updated into the book of records.
Okay.
And records had errors loading into the book of records, or how many records had exceptions. So we updated the information, but there's something that they need to look at. So
okay, fair.
That then, for each of those jobs, goes through the whole errors and exceptions list to try to figure out what, if anything, needs to be done to manually update those records.
Okay.
That's not done within our system. So they get the list from the book of records application, but then to analyze and figure out what really needs to be done with those records, they go out to a number of different websites, the state website,
it's
Google.
Data collation, right?
Yeah. So how do you do the metrics? How can you do the metrics for one of those operations representatives trying to analyze what needs to be done with this particular error?
Gotcha. Okay, so your system's already built to give you some numbers, which I suspect you're probably getting, which is just a basic incident rate pie chart of what is our top errors, what are our top whatever errors. If you're not collecting those, then please start getting that, teasing it out of the metrics that you're already collecting. Because obviously, if you're trying to fix problems, a problem that happens one time out of 1,000 versus a problem that happens one time out of 10, you're going to want to focus on the 1 out of 10, right? So make sure you're focusing on the problems that are causing the most amount of pain. And the first look is which problems crop up the most, okay? I would strongly recommend that whatever you find, Gemba, sit down with those investigators that are going into those records and seeing, hey, this should have been whatever, okay? This would have ingested smoothly if we had just formatted it this way or had that data or whatever. And I would suggest that at least a certain amount of those are resolvable via code. Maybe identify the anti-patterns, and when your user first loads up something, if you recognize a common anti-pattern, pop up a warning label. Hey, this particular field is misformatted, or you've got a semicolon where you needed a colon or whatever. Please fix this and resubmit. And then you get good, clean data right off the bat. Okay, but all of that only really talks about the ingestion of the data. You've still got an entire world of Gemba metrics about what happens with the data once it's in the system. So think beyond just the ingestion process. There's a lot more there where you could figure out what your users are doing with the data. But you certainly have the opportunity to, it's like clearing up a backup in a process or backlog in a process. Once you clear one backlog, there's just another one waiting right behind it, right? You just go to the next one. You could very well do that with ingestion failures as well.
Okay, I think my question more is for, like I said, we have the metrics that we can capture within the application that, we process the file and then load into the book of records. My question more is, how do you get the metrics since it's outside the system? So for this particular error,
got it.
This op rep first goes to the state site to check something, and then goes to a Google search, for an address.
How does it get solved? Less than it's the problem.
Right.
Gotcha. Question for you. We've got about 4 minutes left. I believe we're closing at the bottom of the hour. Is that right? Guys, I think that's what I heard. Okay.
Yeah, we can run a couple minutes over if need be. It's okay.
Okay. Well, you know what? I'm going to go till we're out of questions, or do you guys cut me off? Okay. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. All right. So the challenge now that I've got a better grip on it, and my apologies for the sidebar there. You're trying to get metrics out of a very organic human process of we went here, we went there, whatever.
Right.
I got to say, I think you're going to be challenged to get those metrics without some sort of survey from the people who are solving the problems. Maybe a quick Survey Monkey. Okay. Hey, you just solved this ingestion problem. Which one of these sites did you go to do it? Maybe something like that. The challenge for you is going to be to try to come up with some sort of a survey that is short, sweet, and to the point. You don't want to waste their time, but yet yields valuable information that you can then use to try to head off problems in the future. Is that still the end result, to try to head off problems at the pass, as it were?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, possibly. I mean, just we need to figure out, where they're going and what they're doing, what they're looking for.
Yes.
To better help us update the ingestion,
I
process.
think at the end of the day, you're still down. Yeah, you're still down to just a brute force Gemba of sitting down with some of these people and say, hey, walk me through a couple of these. Show me where you're getting your information from. And then this is going to be more human-centric metrics collection, asking them to fill out some sort of after-action report of what's going on. It doesn't sound to my ear like you can automate everything that they're doing trying to solve their problems, though. And I think that's why you're asking it, right?
Yeah, that's the other angle, because we are looking at trying to automate some of these things.
Okay. Well, you definitely want to know what are their sources for resolution and what are their processes for resolution. I'd pull together some of your mavens within that group of people. The mavens are the senior tech leads who know where all the bodies are hidden. right? You've probably just thought of the names of 2 or 3 of them off the top of your head, and get them engaged in the process of trying to improve their work lives. They're probably going to be pretty open to it, I would hope.
Yeah, I would hope so too.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're back to beer and scotch.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. All right, let's go with a couple more questions. Kim, I know you had a second one, and Larry, I know you had a whole double fistful as well.
So yeah, this is Kim again. So we manage a suite of member-facing sites for an insurance company, and we're very big on NPS, Net Promoter Score.
Yep.
I'm curious how you feel about feedback you've gotten that way, and if it gets to a point where you stop asking for feedback when you keep getting the same answers over and over again and you can't control.
I have to say, yes, I've been in this position before. I do safe training as well as an SPC. I don't have any public classes on the calendar right now. I believe that Allison does, so you may want to reach out to them or some of their trainers.
Okay.
But my feedback for the classes was so consistently uniform that I have to admit, I haven't paid really close attention to feedback for so long because it was just so consistent.
Right.
Great presentation, good speaker. We love the war stories that he's giving. He could use a little more sticking to the slide deck. That's it, over and over and over and over again. NPS is great for the broad level. Are we going the right direction as a company?
Right.
NPS will not help your product people make the decision of this feature versus that feature based on what your customers are telling you. They're separate metrics that are designed to answer separate questions.
Yeah, that's helpful because we ask, we consistently ask, would you recommend this product to your friends? And we get the answer, no, my friends don't get to choose their insurance company. So why do we keep asking them? Like it's ridiculous, right?
Okay.
No,
yeah.
they don't have a choice of insurance companies. So why would I recommend your portal?
Well, I will say this might be valuable as well. Your customer's attention is an insanely valuable resource to you and to them as well. It's invaluable to you because that's where you get value from your product for you, the organization. But it's incredibly valuable to your customers because everybody and their dogs is demanding a piece of that attention. Everybody. If you've got something like an NPS that is not yielding functionally valuable information, in other words, hey, senior level executives, we're collecting NPS scores. What decision have you made in the last quarter based on this NPS score, right?
Thank you. That's what I needed. Yep.
If nobody's doing anything with it, you're wasting your customers' time. Don't do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That's my gut. Yeah.
There you go. You could use your customers' time for much better information. Here's the beauty of Gemba metrics. They are 100% automated and they do not require any additional customer input other than log in and use our product. That's it.
Thank you.
Not a problem, Kim. Happy to help.
So Lee, this is Larry again. I had a related question. Basically, different slant though. If your metrics show stellar results, and they always do, of course, leadership loves that. We're doing great. But how do we get them to venture out and potentially look at other aspects of things that may present a different picture? Which is something we want, by the way. We want to know if we have a blind side. We want to be able to do something about that.
Absolutely. Let's say you were an insurance company that had a front page feature that only 8 people had ever used. And that's a theoretical example, hypothetical example, right? when things are going really, really, really well, as a consultant, there's an old story running around consulting groups that I always reach out for this. Consultant schedules a sales meeting with head of a major manufacturing company. Consultant walks in and sits down, and before he can even introduce himself, the head of manufacturing, the CEO, is like, well, I don't know why you're here. Last year we made $13 million. And the consultant leans in and goes, that's awesome. How do you know you shouldn't have made $15 million? Okay, so whatever the success is, that's fantastic. You are in a great position if the metrics are that strong, but you can always challenge leadership with, how do we know it shouldn't have been 15 million or whatever the numbers are, right? That is the point of being agile. We can embrace change and a learning culture to quickly put out something new with an MVP, test the waters, see what the metrics are, and go from there. Okay, if you've, I'm going to stop the screen share for just a minute here and just go to the whiteboard back here. The Phoenix Project and DevOps Handbook by Gene Kim, they both talk about the 3 ways of work. And I'm real briefly, the first way is flow, product coming out smoothly. That's your first way. The second way is feedback. This is the Gemba metrics that we're talking about, okay? And the feedback is great, but the third way, and this is the important part, is the learning culture where that feedback is now involved in new product coming out the door. So if you've got an executive team that is sitting there fat, dumb, and happy on some beautiful metrics, challenge them to get uncomfortable. Challenge them to take those beautiful metrics for a spin and see if we can figure out new feature set that will beat our competitors to the market, because that's what we're here for, right? That's what we want to do.
Thank you. I love the way you frame that, a learning organization. The group that I belong, that I'm working with now, my company, not my company, I work at a company. We talk about that all the time, but we always focus it on how well the developers are doing and how they can get better at their craft. That's the way. But, and we want to do that.
Sure.
But I love the way it's a learning organization, the entire company. How do we get better? And the metrics might be able to tell us some of that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Love that.
If I'd asked my customers what they'd wanted, I'd have bred faster horses.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. All right. I think we got time for 1 or 2 more. If anybody else.
Hi, this is Belinda. I have a question.
Hey, Belinda.
Hi. So I've heard of this saying, a metric that becomes a target ceases to be a good metric.
Okay.
How would you frame, in general, not specifically, but how would you frame your metrics so you're getting feedback that is really meaningful and that somebody can't game to, build a process around so they always look good?
Right. So you're going to need some sort of method to know either proactively, do we believe we're getting ready to build the right thing, or retrospectively, did we build the right thing? Okay, you have to have some sort of an assessment of the product before it enters manufacturing and once it's in the market. The Gemba metrics are a little bit of both. So there's something that their transaction cost, the cost for the customer to actually generate the metrics, is practically for free. All of the cost with Gemba metrics is in the development and deployment of the metrics code itself. Once it's out in the field, like with the discussion earlier with Kim Bennett, those NPS scores are constantly producing the same information. Why do we want to still waste our customers' time? Gemba metrics don't waste your customers' time. This is stuff that's collected in the background along with them doing their regular day-to-day business on your portal, in your app, in your product, whatever. So I understand the point of any metric that has become a target has lost some of its juice. I fully get that, but I'm not entirely sure that that aphorism applies here, because this is, think of it like a server uptime metric. My server uptime metric is always 99.99%. Oh, great. Well, it's constant. Let's quit measuring it. I mean, that doesn't play, right? You're constantly going to be looking at that. The cost of collecting Gemba metrics is just as inexpensive. Why would we want to turn some of them off if there are still live customers using that piece of the product? Now, if we have sunsetted an entire section or an entire feature of the product, yeah, we should look at archiving that particular set of Gemba metrics, get it out of the way so that it's no longer cluttering up our viewpoint or our databases, and keep right on trucking. I think I kind of bounced around it. Check for the response. Belinda, did that get you answered there?
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Yay, I helped.
So
All right.
Comment. This is Larry. Not a question, but it's just an aha moment. Early on in your presentation, I was thinking Gemba metrics are things that you are going to be measuring, let's say after the development of the product, maybe as you're considering releasing it, after it gets released, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that still holds true. What I didn't get was, until just now, is you're typically going to be doing it in an automated way. So
yes,
you said when it doesn't cost much, the development is the cost. After that, it's just somebody actually reviewing all those results.
It is, without a doubt. And keep in mind, the bulk of the cost of setting up Gemba metrics is heavily front-loaded with establishing the libraries that your developers will use, getting the, strike that, let's start at the beginning. You have to choose an analytics suite. You have to sign whatever contracts or get that set up. Then you have to take one or two of your developers and tell them, we want to start using these analytics for how our customers are behaving, figure it out, and cross-train all the rest of the developers. That's the bulk of the cost. Once Gemba metrics are part and parcel of your normal workflow, like QA testing or whatever, the actual work, when the customer comes into a new feature, it's usually 3 or less lines of code that is a call to an external database with a specific set of data that we're feeding into the database. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. In fact, most of your analytics suites even have a strategy for, hey, what are we supposed to do if our customer is offline? Not a problem. The analytics get collected locally, and the next time the customer connects to the general internet, then those analytics go up to the cloud. So you'll get them eventually.
Thank you.
That's almost trivial. Not quite. I didn't say development was trivial. Devs always like to throw things at me anytime I say that phrase, and I get it, but it's not expensive either. This is not rocket science, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. All right.
So it sounds like that's about it.
I think so.
All right. Well, Lee, from Agile Hartford and our community, we want to give a sincere thank you to you for this presentation. Very informative, very relevant, very timely in cases.
I like it.
And if you wouldn't mind, if you could forward your slides in a PDF, we'd be happy to send them to the members.
I will get that taken care of by tomorrow, close of business at the latest, okay?
Awesome.
And Larry, I'll reply to your email with that PDF format for you, okay?
Great, thank you.
Great. Dave, do you want to take us out? I'll take that as a no.
That's a hard no. You should probably do that. Thanks for asking.
So you should all have a survey in your inbox about tonight's event and also for what we can do as a community in Agile Hartford. It also includes a link to our May event And as we mentioned, June is coming up soon. We have exciting news about that, so stay tuned for more information. And that will do it from the Board of Agile Hartford. Again, thank you very much, Lee, Allison, and we will see you guys in May. Have a good night, everybody.
Take care, folks.
You
Pleasure.
too.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.